All right, hello everyone and welcome. I believe this is the 20th Meet Your Delegate call hosted by GovAlpha. I'm joined here by the delegation from RISKDAO. We're gonna give a quick run through of their platform, kind of what they stand for and why they wanted to join as a MakerDAO delegate. And then we'll open up the floors for some open question and answer. Really appreciate all those who made time to come to this meeting today. And if you're watching the recording, welcome as well. Without further ado, I'll pass the mic over to Theo here and let us know what RISKDAO is all about.
Thank you so much, Peyton. Nice to meet all of you. You can call me Theo. I go by the handle Nonstop Theo. I'm really excited today to present the RISKDAO delegate platform to the Maker community. And just gonna take the next few minutes to run you quickly through RISKDAO. And then open for some questions. So the RISKDAO was initiated earlier this year as a service DAO by B Protocol and the research arm of 1KX. We basically focus on providing open source risk assessment frameworks and associated audits to DeFi lending and borrowing protocols, as well as L1 networks. We work in public. And we're really focused on making tools and resources available as open source code. We basically strive to make protocols safer and outline risks more clearly for users and for stakeholders in lending protocols at large. The team has grown beyond the two initiating members. Two as in the two organizations, B Protocol and 1KX. So we've grown beyond that and also include LabTribute, which is a developer and contributor team that previously was associated with the Tribe DAO. I also joined RISKDAO fairly recently, and we have a growing community. So basically DAO members, some of which have already expressed an interest to join as contributors. And just to give you a little bit more of an overview what we've done so far in our relatively recent history, we've outlined a bunch of previous works directly on the delegate platform, but some of them I just want to touch on, as they're worth highlighting. So one of the things that we're really proud of is the Bet dashboard, where basically we went through a bunch of lending protocols, looked at the TVL, and then we looked at the bet debt, and did some analytics around that, as well as some subsequent deep dives into why certain protocols have much higher bet debt than others. You can toggle, you can see the bet debt ratio, and then you would see Moonwell and Burst Finance and Iron Bank, for instance, as the ones having double-digit bet debt. We went on to investigate why is it so high. For instance, in the case of Iron Bank, it's relating to a DAO-to-DAO loan that was given to Alpha Homora and then ultimately not liquidated. So there's a lot of qualitative conclusions you can make by looking into the data, right? You just basically take this as the first starting point, on your journey to find protocols that work prudent, that have very little bad debt, and then also to understand why it is that they have high or low bad debt. As you can see, Maker, ranks very favorably. The bad debt ratio is tiny. Sometimes that's really just related to dust. That's one piece of work, that's also proven to be particularly helpful to other protocols and investor stakeholders. We've done specific work for the MakerDAO ecosystem. So we've alerted around the ETH collateral and the low dust levels, as well as the detailed analysis here in their blog post. And we or rather B Protocol, not we as RISKDAO, but B Protocol as one of the members of RISKDAO, features the MakerDAO vault system on the front end. B Protocol submitted an MIP with regards to alternative liquidation mechanisms, even though that's that's on hold, that's not being further followed. The large review team worked with Faye and Dai. B Protocol did a security audit. So you can see we've done a fair amount of really detailed work around MakerDAO and other kind of elements that reference to MakerDAO. In terms of the general contributions we've done to other DeFi projects, so we've done some work for Vesta Finance, which is a fairly detailed write-up on risk analysis and the liquidation mechanisms. You can see that here in the blog post. We've done an origami dashboard. Loading it slow. Where you can see the system status of origami and the collateral types, etc. That. It's slow, it's loading. And so we've done some further work. Some of it sometimes is very, very deeply quantitative and involves liquidation simulation. Others is more qualitative. We've participated in bug bounties where we proactively alerted Moonwell about a potential cross-chain bug, and then also did a bounty for the chicken bonds by Liquidity, which have been announced recently and are going operational now. So it's a relatively broad-based set of previous works we've performed. So specifically about me, I'm a freelance contributor to DeFi protocols, and just recently started to talk more with some of the RISKDAO members, and then basically the connection came together that we decided that we want to collaborate specifically on governance efforts. I'm spending most of my time normally around research and analysis, so that can be quantitative stuff like on Dune or Flipside, or it can be purely qualitative, as in just reading research and going through specifics of protocols. My background originally is in corporate finance and corporate development. I used to work in investment banking, and then I worked for a large corporate, but that's many, many years ago, and I've been full-time crypto for the last couple of years. I also have experience with financing real-world assets. That's primarily because in my banking days, I covered real estate and hard assets, from a banking point of view, as well as specific governance-related topics, where in a previous life as a corporate finance banker, governance for many of these traditional companies has a role. Sometimes it's prioritized. Sometimes it doesn't have a big priority, but it ultimately always comes up in valuations and ability of companies to perform. So yeah, that's basically just a quick intro about us. And so I will be serving as your contact person with regards to RISKDAO interactions. We work as a highly collaborative team, meaning I don't decide stuff on my own, but the way it flows is if something's coming up for a vote, for discussion, I would create short summaries and then share that with the rest of the team, so that I'm really just a messenger. But everything is done on a kind of internal discussion basis. We are super closely aligned with MakerDAO. We consider it an essential DeFi primitive. We want to see it flourish. We want to see it thrive. Whatever Maker is doing impacts all of DeFi, right? So whatever Maker is deciding will impact DAI and it will impact the rest of the DeFi ecosystem. We are very well positioned to grow into this role as a recognized delegate and really grow with MakerDAO over the next couple of years and hopefully decades. We as a DAO, as RISKDAO, go through similar growing pains associated with becoming a DAO, including decentralized organizations or like decentrally organizing us and coordinating. And so the first step in RISKDAO's life was to do all this work and amazing research. build up a team of core contributors. And now the next logical step in our evolution is to be a much more visible participant in protocol governance. And yeah, basically, make our voice heard, with regards to critical the decisions, specifically here for Maker. So that concludes my 10 minutes of presentation.
Awesome. We'll really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through that, Pio, and it's really great that we have so many members of the team here on the call with us. So that will kind of transition us into the open question portion. I have plenty of questions I can ask, but it's really boring if it's only what I want to talk about. So I do encourage you to either use the raised hand feature to let us know if there's something you want to say, or just hop on the mic if it's conversationally appropriate. So in terms of kicking us off, I was wondering if you saw there any kind of immediate opportunities from a risk perspective with MakerDAO. Like, are there any areas you'd like to see us expand on, and whether it be like monitoring or evaluating in terms of new collateral types? Yeah, as broad as you want to make it, but given your experience with setting that up for other protocols, I'm curious if you see any opportunities for Maker you'd like to pursue.
As you said, we've been some other people on the line as well, Eitan and Yaron. If you want to chip in, feel free. Obviously, we want to see Maker grow. We want to see DAO's market share grow. And I just went through a bunch of dashboards before the call, and it didn't look too promising, to be honest. You kind of look at the trend, and it's not something to celebrate too much about. Now, with regards to what collateral can you use, I think the market's just getting tougher in terms of you don't want to expand the collateral into like long tail stuff in the market that's clearly favoring short tail tokens. So in that sense, we probably would have to look at what is scalable, what kind of tokens other than Ethereum and RepBTC can we add. Yara, did you want to add something?
Yeah. I think like in general, MakerDAO already has like a risk team and like very strong risk team. I would say in general right now, kind of MakerDAO is kind of the, I don't know if it's called the left wing or kind of maybe the hawk of being conservative in risk taking. Which I think, it's like perfectly okay, but, like coming from, trying not to replace the risk team, but rather to take risk into considerations in, governance decisions, etc. Then it's definitely something that, we can help, kind of make more awareness for the fact that, okay, MakerDAO is very conservative, whether the community really, is okay with that, not okay with that, etc. It's definitely something where like we can chip in and shed some light there.
Right on. Thanks for that response there. And we're starting to get some questions rolling in here on chat. So I think I'll just start reading them off. Patrick is asking about the actual decision-making steps you'll kind of do. You mentioned you are a team. So there are a lot of DAO proposals, right? Some weeks more than others. So curious, kind of, will each decision be kind of a committee, trial by committee, or is there a certain level where you feel like you'll be kind of raising it with the entire RISKDAO?
Yeah. So if the question is about the decision mechanism, so like right now, like on the technical level, the delegation contract is owned by a multisig, not by any individual. The multisig is right now 2 out of 3 multisig, where like 2 of the researchers and 1 kind of community member have keys to. So that's about the risk decision process. Broadly, we'll try to, of course, base everything based, like first of all on data, but also I think the vision that Theo shared is a lot about pragmatism, and like eventually we do plan to be active not only on risk decisions, but yeah, like to be like a full delegator and vote on everything.
It makes sense. And thanks for highlighting that. 2.3 multisig. I know for groups, we're always curious what method they go with.
I might just chip in and just add that for the RISKDAO, being focused on open source tools, and as Yaron mentioned, we hope to get the opportunity to give some insights that can be verified, and everything is, can be checked back and rerun and see that, whatever we are suggesting is out there, proved by data. So yeah.
That's great. So I'm gonna kick it over to Tim here, who is asking about the growing pains for DAO, and the context there being that you're kind of joining us at a really exciting time with in-game proposal. We're talking about potentially fragmenting into meta DAOs and spinning up our own organizations at a smaller level and kind of starting from scratch, so to speak there. So kind of curious if you wanted to elaborate on those growing pains, maybe some that you've experienced within the protocol, and any advice you'd have for the community with that.
Just before, yeah, maybe let me just go real quick. So one of the things, like growing pains, as in like pains, the process you have to go through. So obviously the thing about the meta DAOs is, how do you attract a community of contributors who are aligned in their vision and in their work ethic, right? And how can they basically work together, even though they're spread all over the world? So in that sense, it's this process. There's like two teams having an idea to shed more light on risk, namely B protocol and 1KX. And then all of a sudden, how do you spread the flame? How do you spread the fire so that more people jump on this and say, wow, I find this is so interesting. I'm checking the Discord every day. I want to be on community calls. People like me, who are going to conferences, and then I'm tapping on Yaron's shoulder and I'm like, hey, how is this going? And, is there something to do? I think it's more or less this kind of process that I was specifically thinking of.
Yeah. I think also, one thing which, like DAO, like the RISKDAO as opposed to MakerDAO, we have like this privilege of really building everything bottom up, right? I mean, like MakerDAO is already a very big organization, and now we need, to make everything into a DAO, while we just, starting with a bunch of people collaborating, and then we just add more people, and then, we have the privilege of also growing relatively slowly, adding only very few people at a time. So yes, we are definitely more, kind of bottom up, and this is the privilege you have, when you're a small organization.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the excitements kind of around in-game is the chance to kind of rebuild a bit more intentionally with the knowledge of what we've learned. So that vote should be starting on Monday, which will be also your first official day as recognized delegates. So like I said, a pretty interesting time to join. Looks like we have Raphael who wants to hop on the mic and ask a question here from Flip Side, one of the other recognized delegates.
Hey, thanks for your talk. It was very interesting, especially the risk piece. So I think the Maker Open Market Committee recently adjusted rates for ETH and BTC vaults, especially, so that the stability piece are now very low. And do you think that's sufficient to attract capital? Like, have you done any kind of elasticity analysis between protocols, or do you think other parameters are more important, like perceived risk or user experience, or maybe any insights you can give us here? That would be super appreciated.
Yeah, yes, I think like traditionally, like MakerDAO was, I mean, like many of the capital in MakerDAO was kind of sensitive to stability fees, or which is basically interest rate. But that was a lot like traditionally, because like MakerDAO, not the portfolio, but like TVL was really dominated by like 4 or 5 very big players, which were all in the flavor of Nexo or even Celsius, right, and alike, which were just the kind of hedging, or covering themselves. They were offering kind of a fiat borrowing versus is collateral, so they were just hedging themselves. At MakerDAO because the interest rates were low. Now is the bear market, and of course, CeFi lending markets are kind of less popular right now. We believe this the majority of the liquidity shrink is because stuff like that. Yes, I think right now, the market will be less sensitive, but on the other hand, MakerDAO right now very much depends a lot on USDC, the kind of USDC so-called derivatives, such as all the UniV3 LP tokens, the Gelato, which is now called, I forgot, the GUNI stuff there, which is all of them are kind of wrapped USDC in disguise. So it depends really a lot on USDC. So it is something that definitely, even on the expense of some revenues, should consider broadening and extending the non-USDC. It's not really holdings, right, but collateral and backing. Yes, backing is the right word. And then eventually, and then it is something also an activity we do in the RISKDAO about kind of optimizing interest rate, etc. We do believe that at this stage in DeFi, it's still mostly about trial and error, and it's really hard to come up with a right formula. But I think MakerDAO really has the privilege where they can do kind of do experiments there and trial and errors with very measurable effects, as opposed to other platforms which might be less vivid or less alive, basically.
Thanks a lot. Can you think of any other steps that Maker could take to attract more decentralized collateral and kind of offset this RWA heaviness that we currently have with USDC?
Yes. So actually, part of our previous contribution that I did, in the heart of B protocol, and maybe so B protocol. So right now we are not really actively no longer trying to promote this proposal, but we did a proposal to kind of a bit revamp liquidation mechanism, where of course our incentive there was to actually promote B protocol. But I think eventually, not Troon's endgame, but one endgame for all DeFi lending markets is right now DeFi really offers kind of inferior kind of user experience, in the sense that if you want to have leverage, so the X2 or X3 leverage you can have in Maker is not that high. Even if you do want X3 leverage, you will get liquidated relatively quickly. So back then we suggested some kind of B protocol integration, which will support higher collateral ratios. But even without B protocol, eventually right now the OSM mechanisms, other stuff there really dictates very conservative liquidation ratios, which eventually give very inferior user experience, very low leverage, and so I think again, not the end game, but one end game is to really try to, for all of DeFi, not only MakerDAO, is to really try to compete somehow with CeFi there and give real leverage product. And then if you look at the Bybit, all the others, they make tens of millions. People pay a lot of funding rates there, even sometimes 100%, yearly, because they get real leverage, right? In DeFi right now, you get very conservative leverage. So, yeah.
Thanks. That's a good perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate it. And feel free to drop more questions as they come in the chat. We got a few more minutes here, so we can definitely work at least one or two more. I'm curious, perhaps a slight departure from the platform, but you do have this unique perspective as B Protocol, as someone who has kind of ran on top of MakerVaults. And I'm curious if there's any changes, any innovations you'd like to see in terms of our actual user experience, right? Is there anything Maker can be doing there that would make it easier to integrate with?
Yeah, yes, of course, like on technical level, we try to promote kind of B protocol integration is a change there. No, but definitely integrating, with the smart contract is kind of challenging. And to be honest, we actually first, like MakerDAO was the first integration we had, but only because we had some kind of prior knowledge with MakerDAO. Actually, some liquidation bots around MakerDAO. But yeah, like otherwise, we would never get close to it, like in some senses. So yeah, like I think the code, it's very steep learning curve. It's very hard to enter. But actually, once you learn it, it's very elegant and actually well-designed code. But yeah, like a lot of people in the ecosystem are really, it's a really, like a strong effort to learn it. But yeah, actually, once you learn it, you kind of learn to enjoy it.
And that's a helpful perspective. Seeing in the chat some support for revisiting ETH perhaps. I am curious, we do have this program for that recognized delegates are eligible for, basically for proposal bounties, whether it's through a signal request or writing your own MIP. We do pay out extra if Maker Governance approves something that's proposed by someone outside of the core units. So I'm curious, do you guys see yourselves putting forth many efforts? Like, would you like to be proposing different rule changes as well, or are you mainly kind of seeing this as a monitoring other votes that come up engagement for the team?
Yes, so like right now we are not, and we don't really have plans to further, kind of try to promote B protocol within MakerDAO, but definitely from time to time, yeah, we do see it as like contributing also code and not only kind of governance, into MakerDAO.
Right on, thank you. I know we're running right up against time here, so I'll give a last call for questions. And again, just want to really thank you guys for coming out and joining the Recognized Delegate team.
Well, thank you guys so much for having us. Super excited to embark on this journey and become a very active member / delegate of the MakerDAO governance.
Right on. So if you're watching this recording, you should see the RISKDAO delegate profile already up there on the voting portal. If you're live on the call with me, give it a few minutes. So we will be merging the PR here shortly. And that contract is live. So our official metric starting date is Monday. That's when we'll be keeping track of your votes and communications. So we look forward to kind of seeing you weigh in on the various items that come forward through Maker Governance here. And yeah, thanks again. Was a pleasure hosting this call. One last call out to the delegate platform. If you have further questions, if you watch this recording, you think of anything else, feel free to drop them there. And we look forward to engaging with you guys here soon.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.